Hunger is not a word most of us associate with the residents of us living in the Farmington Valley, yet it's a reality for many of our neighbors. While the impact of the pandemic has made the problem of food insecurity more visible, the truth is that food pantries have been a necessity in our area for many years. One of those food pantries, Gifts of Love, has been helping those with food insecurity for over 3 decades. It is one of 60,000 hunger relief organizations throughout the country, helping people cope with hunger. Within the last few years, Gifts of Love has joined a movement to help its clients understand the role that food plays in their overall health. Hello, I'm Andrea Obston, and with us today are 2 people intimately involved with these issues. Ryan Pettengill, Gifts of Love Executive Director, and Katie Martin, PhD, Executive Director of Food Share's Institute for Hunger Research and Solutions, and the author of a new book, Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries, New Tools to End Hunger. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
And welcome, Katie. And congratulations on the book, Katie.
Thank you so much.
Ryan, tell us a little bit about Gifts of Love Food Pantry, who it serves, where it's located, a little bit about your clients.
Well, to explain Gifts of Love and the impact that we have, I'd be remiss in saying that we are, we're not alone in this fight. And I love that we can have this segment talking about food share as well, because, it's so important from our perspective, kind of understand the gaps in services and our role that we play in filling those gaps. And how we, best serve people in need, and the way we best serve them is by complementing programs like Katie's and others that exist in the world. So, anyway, Gifts of Love has been around for a little over 30 years. We started as a community-based program, Simsbury-based, with the mission of neighbors helping neighbors. People in the community wanting to help others in need that were, facing hard times. And that's essentially the mission now. We are focused on fighting food insecurity throughout the Hartford area. We've certainly grown in the last 30 years. We've evolved. We now have 2 pantries, one in Hartford, one in Avon, functioning farm here in Simsbury, and then a backpack program that is kind of bursting at the seams that we're delivering through our school-based partnerships throughout the Hartford area. So we have a lot of exciting programs, and I'm excited to be here and talk a little bit about them.
You've had some recent changes at Gifts of Love in terms of the food pantry. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we've had a number of programs that have been growing and changing and evolving, but what I'm most excited about, especially with just what happened in the last few weeks over the holidays, were the physical changes that we've been able to do. We had an amazing holiday campaign, and we had a lot of support from the community. We do year-round, but really we closed out the year really well. So we were able to change the physical space and do some important upgrades there. We got a new floor in our Avon office, new racks and things like that. And it really makes a difference. It's important to us that our clients, receive our services with dignity, that they have options, that they feel like they're not just a part of a handout. And the physical space is really important to that effect. The first person that came in, I was there as part of all of the renovations, kind of managing it. But the first person that came in that saw it for the first time after we reopened said, "Oh, you look like the Gap." Because we had like new racks and new flooring and everything and white walls. And that was a proud moment for me. That's what we're going for, right? We want our clients to feel like they have options, like they're shopping more than anything. And to give them that dignity is really important to us.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that whole idea about dignity and choice and how that fits into your philosophy that has to do with the food pantry.
Yeah, well, I think this is probably a universal truth for a lot of different causes, and a lot of different nonprofits could kind of talk through this same issue. We have our ideal image of the lifestyle that we want our clients to lead, right? For us, it's about food choices, but it could be about exercise, could be about a lot of different, quality life areas. But for us, we would love to say, yeah, you're all going to eat, the perfectly balanced meal from now on, and we'll snap our fingers and that's seamless. But we have to be very mindful of the background that this person has, their existing knowledge, their existing choices, their existing habits, and be mindful that and respectful of the world that they're coming from and the context that they have and what role food plays in their life. So, we have a lot of systems in place to kind of educate our clients about food choices. And as we walk them through the aisles, our pantry, we try to balance what we, actually have in inventory with the balanced meal that we're hoping this person will have. So there's some sugary stuff in there. There's some salty stuff in there, certainly. But we try to educate the client as they go through that they have choices, and we're kind of, sometimes we're taking baby steps to help them lead a healthier lifestyle. But we are definitely nudging them in the right direction through our programs.
And you have a system where you use red, yellow, green lights to indicate some qualities about the food. Katie, I know this is a system that you created. You called it the SWAP system. Talk a little bit about that.
I'm really proud. This is one of our signature programs at FoodShare that we call SWAP, which stands for Supporting Wellness at Pantries. And Gifts of Love in Avon was one of the first food pantries to pilot our stoplight system. They were one of 6 food pantries in the state. And I developed SWAP from spending a lot of time at different food pantries and talking with food pantry directors and staff and trying to encourage them to promote healthy food. And then I realized many of us don't really understand what we mean by healthy food. What is that anyway? And I wanted to create a system that would be really intuitive, very simple. So if there are volunteers at a food pantry that don't have any nutritional background, may not even have Wi-Fi in a food pantry, a system where they could determine which foods are healthier than others. And so we came up with the idea of a stoplight system. The stoplight, because it's really intuitive. Most of us have the sense of green means go, this is healthier. Yellow is, whoa, think about this, it supports health. And red, we design as think of this as a treat or a snack. It doesn't mean no. We all like red foods. SWAP is based on 3 nutrients. It's saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars. And we use these because they're the ones that are most linked to chronic disease risk. And they're on the back of every food label. So if you're looking at food in a food pantry or if you're shopping in a grocery store, you can use the SWAP system to help identify which foods are healthier than others. And the cool thing about SWAP is it's really for all of us. So I think of it as a tool to increase both the supply and the demand for healthy food. So just as Ryan was talking about using this as nutrition education and promotion for clients who are shopping at a food pantry, it's also for the staff who are ordering food from the food bank. It's for donors in the community who are running a food drive to help all of us, and then even more upstream for our food donors and the companies that make our food to hopefully tweak the foods so that they're healthier for all of us.
This system came about because of your work for FoodShare's Institute for Hunger Research and Solutions. Tell us a little bit about the Institute.
Yeah, so FoodShare is the regional food bank in Greater Hartford, and we created the Institute last year in 2019, and we serve as a resource for other regional food banks, food pantries, and community partners around the country. So that's really the fun part of my job, is that I'm not only working here in Greater Hartford, but I get to talk with other food banks and food pantries and academic researchers nationally. And we focus primarily on our 2 signature programs, SWAP being one to increase access to healthy food, and the other signature program is called More Than Food. And this is based on the premise that nationally we have done a really great job of collecting, distributing billions of pounds of food to tackle the problem of hunger for like 40 years. But sadly, food insecurity is a persistent problem in our community. It's not going away. And it's my firm belief that it takes more than food to end hunger. So with our More Than Food program, we work with food pantries to provide additional wraparound services to connect individuals, not just with healthy food, but other supports, whether that's affordable childcare, working on finishing a degree program, legal assistance, transportation, mental health services, all of the other holistic needs that they have beyond the food. And so through the Institute, we provide resources, training, materials so that other food banks and food pantries can take advantage of these programs.
And you have a book that you've written. Congratulations. I assume that came out of your work with the Institute. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the book came about from my career has been focused on this passion of mine to really focus on anti-hunger work. So the goal of the book is bold yet simple. It's to reinvent the way that we provide charitable food in our country. So from the way people are greeted when they come in, I love, Ryan, how you're talking about when you come in to Gifts of Love, it feels more like the Gap, right? Isn't that how it should be? So that it can be a more welcoming, dignified, empowering space when you go to seek help. To the role of volunteers, focus on food donors. Every chapter, I touch upon a different topic that's related to charitable food. And it's meant to be inspirational and also really action-oriented. So at the end of every chapter, I have simple action steps that anyone who's volunteering or working in a food pantry or food bank can take in their community today.
So 2 things. Tell us the title and tell us how people can get a hold of it.
Thank you for giving me this platform to spread this good word. The title of the book is called Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries, New Tools to End Hunger. If you just do a Google search with Reinventing Food Banks, it will pop up. My publisher is called Island Press, and you can find it there. It's also available on Amazon, and the official publication date is March 9th. And I think we're going to be hosting a book launch at the beginning of March, so you can stay tuned.
Wonderful. One of the things I know from having worked with you is that you feel strongly that there's a connection between hunger and health. Talk about that.
Yeah. You want me to touch upon that first, and then we'll...
Yeah, because I know that's a real passion of yours, so I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of evidence that shows a strong connection between food insecurity and chronic disease risk, particularly increased risk for type 2 diabetes, hypertension, obesity. That's why it's so critical that when we're thinking about donating food, providing food for people who are struggling to get enough to eat, that we really pay attention to the health and nutrition of that food that we donate so that it can help prevent that chronic disease risk and not make it worse. But I'll also say that very often when we think about the connection between hunger and health, we focus on physical health. And there's a lot of evidence and research there, and there's a lot of room for growth there. But there's also a strong connection with mental health. And I think that is an area that we need to pay more attention to. So when you're struggling, the notion of food insecurity is when people are worried about having enough food for their families at the end of the week, at the end of the month. So there's that worry that comes with it. There's some research showing that folks who struggle with food insecurity have higher rates of anxiety and depression. Of course, that makes sense, right? If you're worrying about having enough food for your family, that's anxiety provoking and can lead to depression. And there's a cycle with that. Why this is important then is how we provide services for folks who are food insecure. So very often we think about our services as providing more food to more people as quickly as we can. And we've done a really good job of that. And we've created this very well-oiled machine of getting food very quickly to people, being very efficient. But when you think of someone who's struggling with anxiety and depression, slowing down and taking time to greet people, to acknowledge people, to look them in the eye, to welcome them. Gifts of Love is a fantastic example of this, just the culture that you have when you go into a food pantry to make it a more comfortable, welcoming environment is going to do a lot, not just for physical health, but also mental well-being.
You also mentioned to me something that surprised me, and that there is some chronic disease that is sort of a natural outcome of being food insecure. Talk about that.
Yeah. So years ago, we used to talk about the paradox of hunger with obesity. How could someone be overweight or obese if they didn't have enough money for food? We would scratch our head. Now it seems like a lot of common sense. I think any of us, when you shop at the grocery store, it's often more expensive and harder to access foods that are the ones that our doctors would promote us eating. Or they take a lot more time to cook from scratch. So my dietetic friends will, remind me that you can eat very healthy on a limited budget, but usually it means you need a lot more time to do that. So if you're struggling with a limited budget, or you're in a community where there are fewer full-service grocery stores, it's very challenging to be able to get the kinds of foods that we think of in terms of promoting health. And that's where our charitable food programs like Gifts of Love can step in and make it easier for people to make those healthy decisions.
So, Ryan, you talked a little bit about choice and dignity. What are you doing to respect that need for choice, but also help people choose healthier food at Gifts of Love?
Well, we just steal ideas from Food Share. We honestly, kidding aside, the two organizations get along so well, and I think because we're just so aligned with our approach to the work that we do. We're aware that food insecurity is a symptom of perhaps many different problems facing somebody's life, and so we have the mechanics of how somebody becomes a client at Gifts of Love involves social services, and it involves other programs that are generally from the town where they come from, which is one of many different towns in the Hartford area, but that is a requirement of participating in our programs, that we get this person some other support that they need. And recently we've been really challenging ourselves to understand what else we can do. We stay in our lane. We are good at what we do, and we are not social workers, right? But having said that, we are aware of everything that Katie was just talking about, that somebody's, client's problems are very layered, and we may be winning the battle by handing them 5 days worth of food or 10 days worth of food or whatever, but they have some other gaps to fill. So the question you just asked is how to do that in a dignified manner. And so we challenge our volunteers and we train them regularly on how to support this person as if they were a family member. Talk to them as if they're your friend, and encourage them to speak freely because they're in a safe space. And through that system and the fact that we see them monthly, it's not just somebody that shows up and we hand them food. We actually sit them down and have a conversation with them. We get to know some of their other needs in their life, and we can't fill all those needs, but we can certainly help bridge the gap to other services that they need.
So, Katie, that food pantries like Gifts of Love rely heavily on donations from the community. For those who want to participate in these healthy choice initiatives. Can you give us some guidance for people who are thinking about donating? What food should they be donating?
So I've been a proud resident of Simsbury for about 23 years, and I know how giving and compassionate people are in this community. And it's just really none of our work at Food Share or Gifts of Love would be possible if it weren't for all the volunteers that support this amazing work. And it's important and interesting for folks to know how much we can stretch a dollar at a food bank or a food pantry because we have access to donations of food from the food industry and from retail partners. So my first suggestion is if you can, give $1 when you can instead of food. It's just, we can take that, like a $10 donation can stretch to 25 meals. So when you think of providing, giving back to the community, your money will go far. So that's one suggestion. And then secondly, if you want to host a food drive, there's so many good things about that in terms of giving back and giving people that community spirit. I'm a big fan of pick up your phone, call Ryan, call Gifts of Love, call the food pantry in your community and ask what they need. Because it's a whole lot more work for the staff and volunteers to get a lot of well-meaning donations. But if you have 100 bags that are filled with miscellaneous food items, it's a lot of work for the volunteers to unpack them, sort them. And then especially if you're using swap, you need to then look and rank them, green, yellow, red, and then put them on the shelves and package them. If you ask Gifts of Love, what is it that they need? So there are going to be food items that they can very easily order from Food Share inexpensively. There are other items that are probably harder for them to access that they'd say, oh my gosh, if you're doing a food drive, do a healthy cereal drive for us, or do a toilet paper drive for us. These are items that are harder to get, that we're having a challenging time. But call first, because some of these items, like toilet paper is something you cannot purchase with SNAP or what's used to be called food stamps. It's a need that we all have, but it's kind of bulky. So if Gifts of Love were all of a sudden to get, 100 donations of toilet paper, they may not have space. So call first. We do have healthy donation lists that align with SWAP, so that if you're doing a food drive, you could identify which foods would be in the green and yellow categories. And then I think another suggestion that I often give at the food pantry level, how do we then know what food items we should want? Well, ask the clients just as much as people in the community should ask their food pantry. Food pantries should be asking the people they serve, what are the things that they're most looking for? And I think it's important to be creative and think of the kinds of things that you want. We encourage people to cook from scratch. You think of your own kitchen. And if we're using items that are lower in saturated fat, sodium, and sugar, well, then we may add spices to make them taste great. Spices are expensive. What about doing a spice drive, right? So have people from the community donate spices to a food pantry. It's thinking outside of the box of things that are not just canned beef stew.
Where can someone get a hold of that list of suggested donation items? That's really interesting.
So we have a kind of standard generic healthy donation list through Food Share.
Okay.
So you can contact us at Food Share. But I would say if you're hoping to have that food donated to a local food pantry, then talk with the food pantry and see what they need most.
Okay. So Ryan, Katie's given us a wonderful opportunity to talk about donations, the generosity of the community, your year-round needs. Talk a little bit about donations and how people can help.
Well, we have a really big year coming up, but I want to take a moment to just thank everybody. We just closed out our holiday campaign. We're going to land at around 150,000 on a goal of 100,000, which I was nervous about. The community has blown me away, since I've started, how supportive our community is. And how many, regular repeat donors that we have in our network. I'm so thankful. We have a number of different, specialized campaigns coming up. We just did a diaper drive. We now have 30,000 diapers in our facility, and that was really exciting. But I would, echo Katie's suggestion that, at any given time, if you're looking to donate or you're looking to do a drive, we have a packet of information on how to do that. But the best thing to do is just reach out and see what we need at that moment. We have the pantry, as I mentioned, that we want to try to keep balanced. But the backpacks are especially challenging, right? We have 300 backpacks, all that have the same thing in them, 12 or 13 pounds worth of food that we deliver every Thursday. And that is, a bit of a math problem sometimes. And so if people can give us, some financial support so we can do that shopping on our own, that's really helpful, or just reach out and ask how they can be helpful.
And those backpacks, as I understand it, are given to children to help them and their families get through the weekend, especially those who get food at school. Is that how it works? The
idea is to bridge the gap for the kids over the weekend, because a lot of kids in this area are getting most of their food through their schools, but also to support their families. So the average family size is between four and five people of our backpack recipients. So, we try to load them up as much as we can, which is, a little more than 12 pounds, and I wish there were more. So but we're growing both wider with the number of backpacks that we're delivering, and then also the amount of food that we're delivering each week is expanding. So it's a really exciting program of ours. The other program I want to brag about, if I could take a moment, that's going to be coming online soon. We're going to do a CSA program again at the farm, and we're going to launch a sponsorship program where a donor can actually sponsor CSAs for our clients, which, in terms of the mechanics of getting fresh food and what Katie was talking about, mixing, cooking with real ingredients and fresh produce, that is really hard for a pantry to manage when you're dealing with fresh produce and how to get that in the hands of clients as quick as possible. It can't sit on shelves. So our CSA program is going to be our solution to that in the spring, where our donors will be able to buy their own CSA and support the farm and our programs, or sponsor a family to get their CSA box, which we're really excited to launch in the next few weeks.
Ryan, I want to wrap up with you giving some basic information for about the food pantries, where they are, how people can qualify, how people can request help if they need your help. Talk a little bit about that before we end.
Sure. I encourage everybody to go to our website, giftsoflovect.org. It's got the locations of the addresses of our locations. Our Avon office is right on Route 44 in Avon, and Farmington Avenue in Hartford. And then, the Gifts of Love Farm. All the information's on the website, as well as how to get our services. So if you think that you might qualify, there's information there as well. Or if you are a social worker who wants to refer somebody to us, there's a process for that as well. So it's giftsoflovect.org.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Ryan. If you or someone you know needs help, get in touch with Gifts of Love through their website, giftsoflovect.org, or by calling them at 860-676-2323. And please remember to help your neighbors with financial support, donations of food and clothing, to keep Gifts of Love doing what they do. Thank you for joining us, and please tune in next month for the next edition of Gifts of Love in the Community.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.